Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Newcastle upon Tyne Unitarians. Thank you to Tom and Brigitte for leading worship for us this morning on Zoom. It's lovely to see everybody. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to remind us again of the values that hold us together as a community, and then I will hand over to Tom. We at Newcastle Unitarians welcome all who seek the meaning of life and who believe that human spirituality is wider than any one tradition and deeper than any one set of opinions. With a respect for our Christian origins, we seek to explore all truths from all sources, and our fellowship gives us strength and encouragement in daily living. Now, thank you to Tom and Brigitte. I'm going to hand over to you now to lead worship for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Diana, and thank you to everyone for making last-minute changes to accommodate our little difficulties. We decided that Brigitte really wasn't well enough for the travelling, so we changed it at the very last minute. And I'm going to give away the punchline, so to call it, of my sermon, was that Unitarians are not only committed to defending human freedom, but defending human frailty. And you've done just that and making it easy for us to contribute to lead this worship by agreeing at the last minute to change it to Zoom. The theme of this morning's worship is into the future with hope and courage. And just to illustrate that courage is not anything modern and it's not exclusive to Unitarians. Brigitte has one of her favourite poems as a reading.
This is something a lot of you will be familiar with. It's No Coward Soul Is Mine by Emily Bronte. No coward soul is mine, no trembler in the world's troubled sphere. I see heaven's glory shine, and faith shines equal, arming me from fear. O God within my breast, almighty ever-present deity, life that in me hast rest, as I am dying life, have power in thee. Vain are the thousand creeds that move men's hearts, unutterably vain, worthless as withered weeds, or idlest frost amid the boundless main. To waken doubt in one holding so fast by thine infinity, so surely anchored on the steadfast rock of immortality. With wide embracing love, thy spirit animates eternal years, pervades and broods above, changes, sustains, dissolves, creates and rears. Though earth and moon were gone, and suns and universes ceased to be, and thou wert left alone, every existence would exist in thee. There is not room for death, no atom that his might would render void. Thou art being and breath, and what thou art may never be destroyed. Now, I'm not the great lover for explaining lengthy things. I have the idea that a text should do its work by itself. So this is not an interpretation. That is more, why on earth did I like that poem so much, or do like that poem so much? And funny enough, I've known about the poem long before I known the poem in itself, before I actually read it. And the opening line, the title, was always something which I found very attractive. Predominantly because I think I am actually quite a coward, or I have my difficulties with courage, if I want to phrase it the other way. But by the same token, nobody likes to be a complete coward, nor do I. So I always was searching for something which is courageous within me. So why not my soul, my psyche, my mind? When I first read the poem in full length, I thought, 19th century, first half of the 19th century, the vicar's daughter writing something which fits into the theology of her time. But that is probably too short an argument. Because even if I think this is not my theology, I like the sense of drama. I like the stark imagery. It is, to all accounts, an extremely well-crafted poem as well. Emily has no problems to speak of infinity and immortality. Both concepts I find rather difficult. But then I, just like her, believe in love as undying. And this might be just something like a meeting point for both of us. Now, infinity is something which definitely frightens me. I had too much of the wrong theology during my childhood, where there was a God sitting up in heaven, keeping an eternal log ad infinitum, and none of what you ever had done. I wasn't such a sinning child, I think, but never mind. None of what you ever had done could ever be erased. Also, in my long span, where I class myself as an atheist, I never lost these having problems with infinity. And it became absolutely obvious to me. If I lay on the grass and the sky was absolutely cloudless, these vast expanse of blue, I couldn't bear it. Give me one cloud and I'm absolutely fine. But then, on the other hand, I felt and I feel still oddly comforted by a line from Psalm 36, verse 6. Your goodness reaches as far as the heavens are wide. I have it even stuck to my wall, written on a background of an enormous blue sky, albeit with tufty white clouds. Maybe I have found something like a sister in Emily, the sister with the courageous soul. And try it, you might find one too. Do you want me to do the mood things now straight away?
Yes.
And the other thing I would like to draw some attention to, moving a bit away from Emily, is actually my native language. My courage is absolutely a three-letter word in German. It's Mut. Der Mut. It's male. I mean, I don't think they got that one right, but never mind. I would have rather preferred if it was neuter, but Mut, M-U-T, also not only turns up as a single freestanding word, it also turns up in combination with other words as a noun. And there's multiple combinations. Nope, I'm not drifting up to give you a language lesson, but I would like to point out three of the combinations. There is Langmut, which literally would translate as long courage, which is patience. And yes, sometimes patience takes courage. I mean, sometimes it's so much easier to run gaily ahead and think, I don't care. And sometimes the ones who say, hey, hold your horses, go slowly, it's a better approach, are the courageous one. There is also, a negative combination, which is actually only one, and that is Hochmut. That is high courage. If you're sitting on your high horse, you're most likely to fall off in the German language as well, because that is being stood up, being conceited. There is also Großmut, largesse, the big courage, where you are generous, being generous in accommodating others and living with all their warts and all their little sort of faults and foibles and everything else. It requires großmut. And my favorite one, I know that is 4, not 3. We are not Trinitarians anyway. There is sanftmut, the soft courage. And if you sort of let your mind wander a bit, sanftmut, being mild, being generous in a way, as not being harsh. Actually, one of the translations of being sanftmütig is also docile and meek. Now, docile and meek have wrong connotations, but don't forget the Sermon on the Mount, where we have the meek who shall inherit the earth. Those are the people with sanftmut. So next time you speak about courage in English, think, even if the words don't exist, the possible combination, courage can come out in many different ways. Even if the language, not every language has these combinations. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Brigitte. Brigitte and I have discussed her differences with the theology in Emily Bronte, but I think the theological differences are not nearly as important or as inspiring as the emotional resonance. And I've said to Brigitte, actually, you and Emily Bronte are just travelling in different vehicles at different speeds to the same destination. Ever since the start of the pandemic, and increasingly since the prospect of recovery has become more realistic, I have begun to notice things more sharply. Simple things, like how attractive and even how audacious a little weed with tiny purple flowers against a background of deep red roses seems as I water the back garden in the morning. And more I notice how beautiful is the natural world that has been created for us, and how complicated is the moral universe that we have created. For instance, I have increasingly come to realize when many people use the word religion, they refer to a system of social and personal conformity that serve the dominant cultural narrative of a particular place in time and the sanctions that enforce that conformity. I use the word religion to challenge social and cultural conformity and to speak for ways of living that are honest and generous, where we are not condemned to compete against each other for pride of possession or pride of position in a constant pantomime of judging and being judged. I use the word religion to evoke a process of expression and exploration, and to seek a place to stand where we can participate in that process. The process of expressing and exploring ideas about life, death, and love, and about good and evil and God. And it is never about asserting the spiritual superiority of the believer, but about asserting a common human heritage of equality, diversity, and dignity. And although I feel that this is a time for looking forward with hope and courage, we cannot assume that the end of the pandemic is in sight and the bright new beginning just around the corner. We cannot take the recovery for granted. We are not there yet. Maybe, just maybe, the worst is over, and this situation, with all its crippling limitations, will come to an end, and we will all see it. Maybe it will not happen as quickly as we would hope. Maybe we are not ready for life on the other side of the pandemic. I cannot be certain. But we can all be certain that the way we do church, the way we do religion on the other side of the pandemic will be different. And I hope it will embrace some of those forms of courage, particularly soft courage, merciful courage, that Brigitte has mentioned. May it be understood that the real job of religion is not to control people's behaviour or to dictate the moral codes that they should live by. It is to feed the spirit, to provide food for the mind, medicine for the soul, and fuel for our creative fire. And at this point, this potential turning point in time, the spirit is hungry for hope and courage. Let us pray. God of hope and courage, of our beginnings and our endings, of all our possibilities and promises, we give thanks for this moment and this day, and for all the moments we have shared, and for all the moments yet to come, for all the moments, days and years of our togetherness. We give thanks for this church that has seen and shared so many moments, days and years. We give thanks for the bold creative vision with which this church began all these years ago. And as the moments roll into days and the days roll into years, we give thanks for all of those who have maintained this church and sustained its vision, for all who have gathered there. We give thanks for all the hopes and prayers of the past, and we join our hopes and prayers with theirs. May the words we speak today give us wisdom, comfort and courage for all the days to come. And may the hopes and dreams we share this day leave their echoes in this place for those who will come after. May this be a place of hope and courage, of comfort and peace for them, the people of our future, as it was for the people of our past, as it is for us. This year, this day, this moment, in this sacred, precious place. There is one thing that would be lacking if we just went head down, full steam ahead. Courage is all we need. No, it's not. We need kindness as well as courage. This is a reflection by Naomi Shihab Nye. Kindness. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment, like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever, before you learn the tender gravity of kindness. You must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows, and you see the size of the cloth. Then, it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to mail letters and purchase bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. Our next hymn is a true hymn of hope and courage. Hymn number 133, How Can I Keep from Singing? Once upon a time, that's how all stories begin. Once upon a time, all of our stories came from religion. And once upon a time, all our religion came from stories. All of the stories and all the art and music that used to feed our spirit originally began in religion. Yes, religion begins in stories and has its finest flourishing in stories. But are we left bereft when our increasing understanding of the world we live in and our growing comprehension of ourselves shows us that, yes, some of the stories in Scripture, in all of the Scriptures, not only the Judeo-Christian Scriptures, are neither historically nor scientifically accurate. Are we bereft? Do we suddenly feel like spiritual orphans? I think not. And I think that this is where the hope and courage truly come in. For the most important, and indeed the most inspiring aspect of our collective spiritual culture is not that some of the stories it tells are true and some are not. It is that at some point in our spiritual and intellectual evolution, we started telling ourselves stories. We looked upwards and we looked inwards and we started telling stories. It all started with stories. All of our arts and science and all of our technical, intellectual and artistic cultural achievement, the stories that we told ourselves as we reached inwards to understand ourselves and as we reached upwards and outwards to grasp at an understanding of everything that is above and beyond ourselves, starts with stories. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks expresses it very philosophically. He says, we can speak, we can conceptualize. This is astonishing ability. It means we can do more than react to stimuli. We can contemplate alternatives and choose between them. We can imagine and act on the basis of our imagination. It is the human consciousness, human imagination, the ability to contemplate alternative futures and the freedom to choose between them that frames the mystery of the human person. It is here also that monotheism, the single greatest achievement of civilization, found God. Some people have a problem with that word, God. And it's not just me banging on about one of my favourite subjects again. There's a very inspiring and provocative article in the latest Inquirer by Sheena Gabriel that makes the same point. But some of the reasons people have a problem with the word are perfectly valid. They may have heard the word used so loosely or abused so foolishly, they would rather not hear again. And I have a lot of sympathy for that attitude. It can save a lot of time and effort trying to assess whether anyone who throws the word God around like confetti at a wedding actually knows what they are talking about or means what they are saying. And of course there are those who object to the word God because they do not approve of anyone believing in something they do not believe in themselves. I do not have much patience with this view. It seems to me to be just as pompous and self-important as the zealots of olden times. However, they do not try to burn them at the stake anymore. You just unfriend them on Facebook or slag them off on social media. So I suppose that's progress. I like to use that little word God, and I'm usually quite careful how I use it, so that I do not limit it to one particular narrow definition. And Brigitte does the same thing in her own way when she refers to God or your particular belief system. And I find with all that is going on and all that is changing in our contemporary situation with Brexit and Black Lives Matter and all sorts of things in between, where so many different opinions clash with each other, I find it difficult to find an honest place to stand often. And that's where I need God most, because the only really honest place to stand is humility before God. And if I need God to be humble before, no one is going to tell me that I'm not allowed to. But one thing that does not bother me in the slightest little bit is when anyone refers to God as your imaginary friend. I am not being tricky or cryptic or speaking allegorically. It simply doesn't bother me in the slightest little bit if people want to think of God as an imaginary friend. As long as I can continue to believe that God is also the power within me, enables me to imagine a friend, the power within me that can create the concept of friendship, and the depth within me that can invest this concept with so much meaning and value. Because I think that is what it means when we read in the Bible that we are made in the image of God. It does not mean that God has a human form, or that we look like God, or that God looks like us. It means that we are made with the ability to imagine things. We are created with the capacity to participate in the mystery of creation. That's what Rabbi Jonathan Sacks is referring to in his exploration of the religious dimension of the human imagination. He was formerly the chief rabbi of the UK, and he was loved and respected far beyond the boundaries of his own tradition, which caused him some problems, as some of the hardliners within his own tradition were not comfortable with that. He wrote a book, a truly wonderful book, called The Dignity of Difference, in which he said, no one creed has a monopoly on spiritual truth. And that got him into trouble. Not just because he said it, and said it in print, but because he actually meant it. Because he treated other religious traditions and other wisdom traditions not just with polite respect, but with sincere reverence. He should have been a Unitarian. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is one. The Lord thy God is one. I think we could learn something very valuable from that. Something that could be very useful as we try to steer our way into a world after the pandemic. As we try to steer towards the future with hope and courage and kindness. That the tolerance that was once so important and made us so distinctive in an age of religious oppression is not so important in an age of religious indifference. And that instead of reason, freedom and tolerance, we might do better. We might make more of an impact with reason, freedom and reverence. Reverence for all of the honest, generous expressions of the human spirit, and recognition that the creative compassion of the human imagination is our greatest link with the creative compassion of the divine, of God. And when the story is told of how we came through the pandemic and made it through with hope and with courage, we might look back and say that the greatest lesson learned was that our human frailty is every bit as precious as our human freedom and equally deserving of our reverence, and that our human frailty, the way we can love and shelter one another in our weakness, may even be the engine that drives our creativity, that drives our human imagination, that feeds the stories that feed the heart, the mind and the soul. And in the end, as in the beginning, We are not only a community of people. We are a community of stories. Let us sing a nice, hopeful hymn. Hymn number 208. Yep, 208, Forward Through the Ages. Imagine a church where people are welcome for who they are and not for what they will agree to believe in. Imagine a church where you are not expected to abide by a set of approved opinions, and no one is asked to do anything other than to respect the opinions of those they meet there. Imagine a church where there are people of different theological opinions who do their imperfect best not merely to tolerate each other, but to befriend and defend each other, and sometimes even succeed. Imagine a church which can offer peace and acceptance when the world outside seems to be a confusion of conflicting demands and competing loyalties. Imagine a church which will simply encourage you to be yourself when so many political parties, religious institutions and cultural movements are trying to tell you that you ought to be someone else, and that if you do not measure up to someone else's artificial standard, then you are not worthy. Imagine a church where our stories can be told, and not only told, but heard, and held, and cherished. Imagine a church where we can share each other's stories. Imagine a church that is made from people's stories. Imagine a church that is a home for stories. Telling stories, hearing stories, sharing stories, and even mending stories, repairing broken stories. Can we repair our stories? Can we heal our memories? Why not? Imagine a church where we could. Imagine a church where, whatever difference of opinion or disagreements there may be, there is also a deep enough reservoir of understanding and acceptance, of compassion, and ultimately of forgiveness, to ensure that what we do through sharing stories that can rebuild relationships and repair memories is never wasted, and something good always comes out of it. Imagine a church like that. And then, remember, nothing was ever achieved or created in human life without people first imagining it and then working to make it happen. Brigitte.
I don't know if I actually want to say anything, because I think something so beautiful just has been said. But two things, probably just like footnotes. There is another combination with Mut in German, and that is Übermut. And as the transportation service is always a bit too much. So it's foolhardiness. It's sort of being reckless. This is Übermut. And I think if we pray for, then we should rather pray for any kind of courage, but a good one. And I think my money is on sanft rather than Übermut. You might not want to agree with me. It is up to you. But I would like actually to finish with something very short, which is also used in secular context. People have got their problems with, and that is the serenity prayer. God, give me courage to change the things I can, patience to endure the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. That is very short and very true. And just on the word of kindness, this is hopefully visible as a pomegranate. It's not the best looking pomegranate, but it is one. And the pomegranate is given something for Jewish New Year, because the seeds symbolize all our possibilities in that year to come to do good deeds. We don't need to be Jewish. We don't even need a new year. Every day is full of pomegranate seeds to do something kind, to be sanftmütig, to do something good, which is good for others, but is so nourishing for our own souls. Amen.